Hi, everybody. My name is Zach Knowlton, and I would like to walk you through a module that I kind of created the shell for that I would consider using going into next school year. Because we're at the end of this school year, and because my current use of modules doesn't really embrace technology the way we've been learning about the last few weeks, I decided not to use one of my existing modules, but instead make the basic shell or the idea of a new one and kind of walk you through my thought process about why I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do. So you can see that this is a fakie course. And throughout the last few weeks, I have been reconsidering how I use modules. Right now, I use modules basically to house documents and assignments on a week-by-week basis. And so students can use it almost like a calendar. They can go to their current week, and then within their current week, they can find any links to websites, links to our readings, and all those things that we do. And I have had some success with that, but I also have some students who just refer to the to-do list and don't always go to modules to check it out. So instead, I wanted to leverage some of the things that I learned about in our course and kind of like make modules more of a requirement, or if not a requirement, at least encourage participation with them. So I think going into next year, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a series of either extra credit modules or modules students can complete if they are having trouble with demonstrating their knowledge with a task in class. They'll be able to go back into modules and do this at their own pace, asynchronously, but still demonstrate that knowledge and either do some makeup credit, or I think when we were learning about it, we called it like remediation credit. So that's kind of my idea about what I want to do. And it gives me the ability to provide some extra learning opportunities. And so I really just tried to dive in and get my head around how to construct an asynchronous module that students can do, including maybe an asynchronous progression of modules. Like, let's say I made a series of extra credits around creative writing, then I could have one module and then you have to complete that one to go on to the next one, and so on and so forth, as a way to kind of have a different concept focus for each module. Okay, that was all my background. Let's go ahead and take a look at what I made. And again, this is a shell. So I made an extra credit TED Talk topic on Roe versus Wade, because it's a topic that's very at the forefront of conversation right now. And while I don't teach history, I teach English, I think that it's still very valuable to think of new ways to approach the topic. And this module culminates in an argumentative writing response. So I would look at this as an extra credit topic. This is not something my students would have to do, but as we're reaching the end of the year, this is something they could do. So one of the things I learned about in the last couple of weeks was going into editing after you've created a module and put some stuff underneath it. And within editing, going through and adding requirements and specifying that students need to move through the requirements in sequential order. So I tried to be really intentional with how I want students to work their way through these requirements. And I tried to do it in a logical way. So you can see that like the instructional or the component in the beginning deals with instructions. That's a mark as done, just like we've been doing in this course. I have a video, an external URL that they need to view. And then let me exit out of this for a second. And then you can see here that after they've gone through the instructions and the introduction, and they've watched the video I want them to watch, then I need them to complete like a comprehension review quiz. Now, the review quiz has unlimited attempts because the goal is not for this quiz to be punitive or to restrict anybody's grades. This is an extra credit module. So the idea is that they have to score at least 8 out of 10 points, but they can take this as many times as they want. And this is sort of a check to make sure that students engaged with the video were paying attention and so on and so forth. Now, one thing I didn't explicitly build when I was building this module was like a note sheet to go with the video. Although, as I've been talking and now that I'm thinking about it, I think it would be great to use a Google integration and just have a copy of a note sheet ready to go so that students could be watching the video and taking notes as they go. So let me go ahead and jump into the introductions. So the way that I would structure this is I would have the module introduction be a video of me, not of Rick Astley, Rick rolling us, but a video of me explaining what my expectations are for the entire module, since it would be asynchronous. And then I would have either a transcript or perhaps just the written version of the instructions I gave in the video. So that way students have a couple different ways to access those instructions. I think the video instructions will be really helpful for some of my students who struggle with staying focused when all they're doing is reading. And so down from there, currently I have this set up as a URL that links out to TED.com, but in thinking about adding that note page I was talking about, I think that I could switch this to a page like that first one is, and then embed the TED video, and then also embed that note sheet through the Google integration right below it. So that way nobody is having to leave the page they're currently on, but they can take notes on the video. They'll take the review quiz as many times as necessary to get at least 8 out of 10 points. Again, it should be relatively straightforward, but it will require that they actually watched the video and didn't just speed through it. And then from there, once they have passed that quiz and kind of shown that comprehension check that they were focused during the video, then comes a Roe versus Wade discussion. So I've made the requirement for this that they do need to contribute. Kind of like what we've done, I would like to encourage students to respond to one another, but I definitely want them to contribute. And as far as instructions for this go, I would say that because this is social and interactive, and because I teach primarily freshmen, I would focus really on using the TED video as a basis for this discussion. So for this discussion, I would probably ask students to pick the 3 quotes that they found to stick out the most to them, or pick, one really interesting thing they learned, 2 main topics that were discussed, and then 3 facts that really caught their attention. Something not necessarily less opinionated, but that gives them room to kind of just talk about the TED Talk video, those that aren't really comfortable talking about these more difficult, nuanced issues in a social or public setting. And then finally, this would culminate in an individual writing assignment, which would be the argumentative writing response. And their answers from the quiz and their discussion with their peers should inform this. And ultimately, this is where they get to practice expressing their opinion, but backing it up with evidence, right? And kind of building towards what we would be doing in class, which would be a full argumentative style essay. Normally, in my English classes, especially for freshman and sophomore level, we are studying fiction. But I really think that having these extra credit modules or having these supplemental modules is a really great way for me to introduce things outside of what are like core work in the classes. So if in class we're always studying novels and fiction, then these modules give us the chance to take a look at some current events, at some nonfiction, at some creative writing opportunities. So I'm excited to start using this. I really have not been using all of the features available under modules, and I think that especially going into next year, I want to start implementing these right from day one to kind of encourage students to engage with modules, but also to provide these extra supplemental or optional opportunities. I am about at the 10-minute mark. So thank you for watching the video, and thank you for any feedback that you give me.